Good morning, friends. I'm just giving an update, and today I'm going to also talk about methylene blue, finally. So today, as the day after chemo, I had the second dose of my 5th round, so I've got my last dose of the 5th round next Tuesday on the 16th, and I'm going to meet with Dr. Rob that day as well, and I actually get all 3, so next week's kind of a big day. I get the Herceptin, Perjeta, and Taxotere. But it will be my last of my 5th round, which means I only have 1 more round. So I have essentially 4 more chemos. So that's really exciting stuff. So I'm kind of seeing the clear and the light in the other end of the tunnel, but I still have a long way to go. And I am certainly noticing a few more things popping up in my body that make me a little more nervous. So we're going to just go with that. Mostly today has been a little bit more GI complaint this morning, and last night wasn't very happy, but not too bad. And then I did get a wave of nausea in the middle of the night last night, which was not good. I really thought I just was going to get up and try to get rid of that, and then I decided to not, because I hate throwing up so much. So I just laid there and it went away. So that was great. Other than that, I've been feeling pretty good. My energy feels good in the beginning of the day. I do seem to taper off kind of dramatically in the evening now. I feel like when I hit that wall, that's all I got. So, that's not bad, because I think that's what most people feel. So I think my energy levels have just brought me down to that normal human level. But anyway, so good things still happening, and I'm having great success. I did have mistletoe on Monday. That was my 29th visit to Atlanta for mistletoe since the 2nd week of January. So that's a lot. Next Monday will be my 30th. Next Monday I'm not doing the injection. I'll just do the IV of mistletoe because it is so synergistic with chemo. I was going to skip a week because it's my birthday week next week, and I was going to just do a spa day and treat myself and basically not sit in a car for 8 hours. But I talked to Hancock, and he said, with the effects with chemo, it wouldn't be wise to skip, and I agree. So I'm gonna keep in there because I know it's helping me keep strong. And again, these are the most important times of treatment, because now it's really starting to compound. So if I'm gonna have negative side effects, I'm gonna see them in the next month or two. And I have had thinning of the hair. You guys really can't see it on this. I put a little gel in there so I can work it a smidge today, but it is thinning. Certain angles you can really see it. Otherwise, yeah, I still have hair. So we'll see how long that hangs on. Okay, so methylene blue. Most people have no idea what this is. If you're an ER doc or in the ER world, you probably know about methylene blue, because there's a whole saying about it, but essentially if you don't know what to do, reach for the methylene blue. If your patient's kind of dive bombing and not doing well, especially blood pressure, if the blood pressure is dropping, maybe they're in some sort of septic shock or anything like that, the methylene blue can pull you out of it. So it is well used in the community in emergency care. So it's not as well known in the cancer community, but it will be eventually. So where does it all come from? Where does it begin? Methylene blue. So it's actually one of the oldest modern medicines. So they made it in 1876. It was a textile industry product by a couple chemists, Ehrenberg or Eldenberg. I should have wrote his name down, but anyway, I believe he was a German scientist, chemist, and he created methylene blue mostly for the textile world. Mess that up. To dye jeans. I believe it was for jeans, so clothing. And they were using it under slides for microscopes to look at cells and pathogens, and that you use methylene blue as the dye on these slides. So I've used it in classes in college, and it's pretty cool. It's a stain, basically. So they noticed while they were looking at malaria under a slide, Plasmodium, I believe, is the parasite. I think it's Plasmodium. Oh, the brain today. But anyway, I think it's Plasmodium is responsible for malaria. So they were looking at it under the microscope, and they put in their dye, and they realized it killed that parasite. And in fact, it kills a lot of parasites, bacteria, viruses, funguses, you name it. It has a really great ability to murder the crap out of those things. So obviously that perked the interest of a lot of scientists. And so it has been used for sepsis, which is when you have a blood infection, and it's very, very scary stuff. Happens actually more than you think. I'm surrounded by geese over here. You can't see them, but if you hear the geese, they're everywhere. So it's really great for killing parasites. And also they'll use it if somebody is poisoned with like, arsenic and what's the other? Cyanide poisoning. They'll reach for the methylene blue and it can save them. So if you're hypoxic, it can save your life. It's pretty amazing stuff. Also, if you're super low in hemoglobin, it can pull that up, so it can support hemoglobin. And how does this all work? What is this essentially doing in the body? Methylene blue has been shown to be a very powerful antioxidant. I know that's kind of like a big buzzword these days, but not all antioxidants are created equal. This antioxidant, I'm sure I'm gonna come across more information at some point, and I wanna do a video that really dives into the chemistry and the physiology behind methylene blue and what it does to the mitochondria. And I'll touch on it today, but I'm not gonna go into full depth because it's a bit confusing. It's a ton of, scientific jargon, and I feel like when I learn how to do videos and put up cool like pictures and show you through the process, it'll be less intimidating than just hearing me say all these words. So maybe at some point when I'm not in this cancer journey, I'll sit down and I'll write it out and try to create a really great video on methylene blue because it deserves it. But there are good videos out there, and there's plenty of doctors that are talking about methylene blue. So please do your own research. Do your own research. It's super important to understand the differences in them. You can order methylene blue online. If you are taking it internal, you need to order the pharmaceutical grade. There is like a chemical textile type grade, and you really want to get that pharmaceutical grade so that it's safe in your body. It is a very safe compound overall. The only people that should probably learn more about it, and this is a super rare condition, but I had to be tested for it too, is G6PD. If you have the G6PD marker in your body, essentially you can't metabolize glucose properly. That's a really dangerous enzymatic reaction. If you have the G6PD gene, essentially, you cannot do high dose vitamin C. And so I was tested for that use, but you should also probably it's a cheap test, cheap blood test. Might as well just get that just tested. It's like 1% of the population, super rare, but please, get that just to be sure, because there's no reason to try to get healthy and then you kill yourself, so it'd be bad. So yeah, get that cleared, and then the only other people that have been sort of hinted on maybe being careful are people on SSRIs. So anything that is releasing more serotonin in your body. Methylene blue does increase serotonin. It also has a really great effect on dopamine. And it lasts about 5 to 8 hours in the body. I think I found a pretty good range there. So it is something that you'd take a couple times a day. But it is super effective at basically helping the mitochondria work better in your body. So when you think about, a cell, a typical cell in your body has about 1,000 mitochondria. And a mitochondria, if you remember from, biology, even in elementary school, maybe they talked about the mighty mitochondria, and it's the producer of ATP, of energy in the body. And in fact, that has even been questioned. The more you dive into this stuff, people are now wondering if it's truly ATP or if ATP has an electric effect on the water in the body. So I am very curious on that. I do believe water is misunderstood. I think there's a lot more to know about water, especially from the conductive sense. And electricity is life. So if you don't have proper electricity transfer in your body, you can't get messages through, you can't survive. It's not possible. So, plenty of books about this. We can dive in deeper into the science. But the methylene blue, when you dive into mitochondrial functioning, you can create ATP in the body with like glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, now called the citric acid cycle, and also oxidative phosphorylation. Now within oxidative phosphorylation is something really magical. It's called the electron transport chain. And so it's essentially a chain that transports electrons down the membranes. And there are these different complex proteins in the membrane, and essentially between these proteins there needs to be this transfer of energy and a recycling. And this is when a lot of cofactors and coenzymes like B enzymes and CoQ10 and some of these other vitamins and antioxidants come in and play a role. And when these things aren't properly there or deficient, we can really get bogged in some of these complexes, and we don't end up finalizing and finishing through the chain, so we're not actually creating enough ATP. And you may see this as chronic fatigue, neurodegenerative disorders, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, COVID-19, long COVID. This has been studied with. Oh gosh, there's so many. UTIs, actually, I forgot about that with sepsis. UTIs, this is FDA approved for UTIs. It's FDA approved for poisoning, like carbon monoxide poisoning can totally reverse that. Obviously cyanide, arsenic, any of the other toxic poisonings in our body like sepsis. It has been super effective at that. And some people are even trying to research this for potential uses in Parkinson's, which would be really great because that is on the rise these days. And obviously cancer. So with cancer, I don't think there's enough studies yet. So still got the research out on that, but if it can help the rest of your body, if the rest of your body's mitochondria function better, most likely it's going to be really helpful, especially because there have been some studies showing that methylene blue alone, but also in adjunct with ALA, alpha lipoic acid, oof, butchering that, ALA, both of those together especially even more effective at reversing the Warburg effect, which is in cancer, this is essentially the cancer cells are dividing faster than normal cells, and they found a way to create energy not with oxygen, so they end up getting into this like fermentation and anaerobic glycolysis sort of way of surviving, and so this has been studied to possibly reverse that effect, which would be really awesome. I'm sure there's more studies that need to be done, but within the electron transport chain, where they're talking about where methylene blue steps in is it essentially bypasses complex 1 through 3 and it jumps it right to 4. So it really, like, if you're deficient in CoQ10, which I believe is between 1 and 2 complex, but it's been a long time for me looking at this, but it'll basically jump. So if you're having issues with those antioxidants, it'll both receive electrons and donate electrons. So it can do both, which to me is almost like a adaptogenic antioxidant. So it sort of can do either, whichever one you need. And it also can bind with hydrogen and create water, which is really effective at creating more of the fluidity and perhaps the transfer of electricity through the membrane. And that's really what this is all about, is more efficiency and effectiveness through the membranes to create more energy so the body can, do its jobs better, not get bogged down by chemicals and such. So that's how it can essentially bypass some of these complexes and really shoot you to the end goal, where, a lot of people will show in like electron transport chain oxygen is the essential final, ATP remnant or the remnant of the process. And this one can actually bind with it and create water, which is pretty cool. So again, I'll go into this more, but I think it's been overlooked or really unknown for a long time, and it's because big pharma will never do studies on methylene blue because it has no patent. It can't be patented. It's a textile industry product. It just happens to be really effective at treating other disease processes. So they have created other drugs, for malaria and other things, but these drugs have a lot of side effects. So methylene blue is a really pretty safe option for people. And again, super effective in the ER, could save your life, has saved lots of lives. So something to maybe do some research on. I know a lot of people are struggling with long COVID and brain fog, and it has been shown, sometimes even in the first time using it, completely get rid of that. So that's worth looking into, I think. So for me, I'm going to take it more, I think, in my last round of chemo. I started taking it a little right now, but I was taking a lot in the beginning before chemo. I'm doing that because I really want it to help me get rid of the toxins of the chemo toward the end of it. I'm not necessarily trying to do that yet because, you know, unfortunately you kind of want some of that junk in you so that it attacks the cancer. So I usually do methylene blue if I'm going to do it, you know, a couple days after chemo. But again, I haven't really dove back into it because I didn't have a great introduction to methylene blue, unfortunately. So I was working with a woman who was kind of underground. She was a retired nurse, really cool lady. She had a lot of really unique therapies. That's when she was one of the ones, the only one who was doing the curcumin IV that I was seeking out at the time. But that turned out to be really dangerous and almost killed me because it was a castor oil based liquid that she ended up infusing into me. And, you know, everyone, I think, ends up having an allergic reaction to that eventually. I mean, this is actually what led me to using Taxotere instead of Taxol, which would be a castor oil-based chemo. Taxotere is a synthetic water-based, so there is no interaction with the castor oil effect, which was at the time I was really hoping I could bypass the steroids because I don't have the allergic reaction that would have probably happened with the castor oil-based chemo. So I think it was still useful. She didn't end up killing me. I'm here. But, you know, I think it would have been wise for her to look into why everyone was having a reaction about the third time she did it. That's about when you start building your resistance against it. And it can, you know, it can do some bad stuff. You swell up. I mean, it was a pretty scary thing for me. I immediately couldn't breathe. She sat me up. I looked down at my hands. They were super red and swollen, like big. I mean, like big. And she was like, "How are you feeling?" I was like, "My face feels really tight." I can only imagine how big my face was and swollen. And she was like, "Yeah, it is." She's like, "Just keep breathing. This will pass." And as soon as she said this will pass, I was like, "Fine, don't give me steroids." She was ready. She had the shot ready because, I mean, this has happened to her a lot, and I wonder why. Luckily, we did not need it. The last thing you need in cancer is dumping your body full of steroids. No matter, I mean, obviously it's essential for the treatment so it doesn't cause, you know, pleural effusion around your lungs. I mean, that is a reason to take some of these steroids to make sure these drugs don't also kill you. But, you know, it's not a great idea because steroids are boosting your cortisol, and that is driving cancer as well. So not great to have high cortisol, especially artificially dumped cortisol levels in your body. But yeah, so she was the only person I have found yet still to do methylene blue IVs. Which I do believe at the time were very high dose. She would run it through this like photodynamic processor thing that like irradiated my blood and essentially killed other parasites and stuff. It was an interesting thing, seeing my blood leave and then come back, and then she's putting this blue in, and you will, if you take it orally, you know, however you take it, you will pee blue. Mine was kind of greenish. It totally blues your urine because it goes right through you, blew through. So, you know, it's kind of weird to see your urine blue, but I was on some pretty high doses, which now I wonder if that was trying to go for the oxidative effect. If you're on super high doses of methylene blue, it is oxidative, which is not what we want. That can be damaging. That's what essentially chemo is working with, is oxidative stress on the body. At the lower levels, not like that at all. Very safe, couple drops. Usually people do a couple drops under their tongue or in water. And I brought my teeny tiny bottle from her, which was a ripoff because this was $100. This is why I haven't been taking this supplement, because I would have been through this in like the first few days. And she wanted me to do the full dropper, but on the thing, it's really like 3 to 5 drops, sublingual, you know. So if you get this, if you get a pharmaceutical grade on Amazon or one of the other companies out there that's legit, they usually show third-party testing, get those people. You know, it's like 20-something bucks for like a big liquid bottle of it. Depends on your dose. Some people who are taking larger amounts, you end up getting a methylene blue powder, and then you can put it into solution yourself. So that takes a little bit of science and some math, but if you get it kind of pre-solutioned in a liquid form, then you're usually pretty good to go. It's just a little bit more expensive in liquid form. I may go to the powder at some point because I do plan on using methylene blue forward, because I did test positive for a Alzheimer's gene in all my genetic testing, and it's really common from European descent, so I'm not surprised. I've had one of my grandmas had it. You know, it's just happening these days. And so I'm going to take Methylene Blue for preventative, because if you can get ahead of the damage done in the nervous system, this can actually prevent the amyloid plaque buildup, which everyone's trying to attack with all these other drugs, but it can prevent the buildup, because Methylene Blue is super tiny molecule. I mean, I feel like I forget, hundreds of times smaller than CoQ10 even, like super small. So it can penetrate all sorts of stuff, goes right through the blood-brain barrier, into the brain, blah, 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 everywhere. So it's super effective that way. And I end up, just so you can see what this looks like, I brought my little cup of water, and just for fun, I'm gonna put a couple drops in. Thought that would be more dramatic, right? So the reason, by the way, hers was so expensive, she reasoned it, because I asked Hancock later, and he was like, it's so cheap, you should never spend that much on it. She said it's because they infused it with these like photobioenergetic, biomodulated liposomal methylene blue. So anything liposomal, cha-ching, the price just went up. So it means it can get into the fat. This is sort of a joke now to me, because the more I've learned about methylene blue, the more I've learned that it's both hydrophilic, it loves water, and lipophilic, it loves fat. So I really don't think we need to put it into a fat form, because it can get there already. So overkill, this is overkill, which is a bummer, but I'll drink my little blue. Try not to spill it too much. It doesn't really taste like anything. I'm a little blue in the tongue. I usually do it sublingual, so I don't waste any. I don't like to waste any with $100 for that tiny jar. I usually just drop it under my tongue, and then my mouth is pretty blue for a little while, but it goes away. Totally goes away. So I think it's a really helpful electron donator that could be probably one of the most powerful things you could add into your routine. I believe everything should be sort of cyclically rotated, so I think things like this would be best used for maybe a couple months and then take a little time away and then maybe get back on it. I think that's how everything should be, so that you're not building a resistance, building a tolerance, not blowing a bunch of money on one thing, you know. And plus you can really get a sense, does this help you? Most people will find that the brain clarity alone and the energy that Methylene Blue provides them, you know, and they don't want to get off it. It's wonderful. So yeah, I think Methylene Blue is a real helpful agent. It's too bad there can't be more research studies on it, because it can't be patented. But that's also helpful, because it can't get ridiculously expensive either, which is good for people who are trying to, you know, do this research, want to be helped, want to be proactive, you know, and they're willing to learn more about this stuff, even if, you know, other people might say that sounds crazy, because most general GP doctors are not going to know about Methylene Blue, and they're going to look at you like you're crazy. But the ER doctors do know about it. But they probably don't know about, you know, how to use it daily and how to really get everything out of it you can from a longevity sense. They're using it as this is going to save your life, and then we're going to just, you know, that's that. So I hope that was helpful to introduce a new possible agent to do some research on. I will absolutely get a cooler video down the road up and go into the electron transport chain and show you these complexes and how it bypasses and what it can really do there, because I think when you understand the science behind something, you can understand it better. That's how it should be. I did mean to say this also can counter NO, which is nitric oxide. Nitric oxide has believed to be really good for us for a long time, but now I'm finding studies that saying it's not actually good for us. It could be really damaging. I mean, it can be great if you have ED. It's a vasodilator, so it has potential to be helpful, but perhaps it's not as helpful as we think, because it is a free radical. It's a really, really potent free radical, which is damaging to our cells. So anyway, the balance between free radicals, grounding, and antioxidants are, you know, this is a big debate, looking at all that and what is really helping our body electrically and chemically and oxidatively. So the jury is still out. Feel free to do your own research. I hope you look into Methylene Blue. I certainly am going to do more of this moving forward as I'm moving through chemo. And I want to also say, This is really effective with the, what do they call it? The photodynamic treatment. So that's light therapy. So with red light. So methylene blue is especially effective with red light, which I have one in my sauna. I've also got like a pad with red lights on it, and I put that on my tumor, sort of over my liver and tumor. And that's when I take methylene blue, I put that light on there because it will go where the red light is. So you can direct it in your body. Otherwise, some people have like watches with a little flashing red light, you know, because the circulating blood activates it. I don't really get down with that. That was what the lady was selling me on, and she ended up letting me borrow it. I never used it. It just, I'm not a watch person, and if I am, it's going to be to tell time, not to shine a little light on my wrist. But I'm sure there's reasons for it. I just, again, I couldn't reason dropping another $100 on a tiny light when I could buy a nice light pad that has so many other uses, and it's a little bit more than $100, and I'm going to use it for so many more things than a little watch. So that's how I reasoned my purchase. But that concludes Methylene Blue, and gives you hopefully a little idea about what that supplement can do for you. Otherwise, thank you guys for tuning in. It's got to be a long video. I hope you guys have a great week. I am headed to Chicago tomorrow with my partner, and we're going to go to the, funny enough, Wind Up Watch Fair. She's working it. I'm going to learn a lot about watches, and probably get a little sightseeing in Chicago just to get out of town for a bit. It would feel nice to have a little, you know, sort of vacation. So we're doing it. But I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll touch base with you next week. Thanks. Bye.